Hello and welcome to the Leveling Up podcast with me, George Swift. Extreme business growth through raising your game. The Leveling Up podcast is here to give you the personal development, the entrepreneurial development, and the business growth that you, the ambitious business owner, desires. We're here to give you the inspiration, the motivation, and to challenge your aspirations to take you and your business to the next level. Tune in every Monday and Wednesday for mindset, attitude, personal performance, and business growth content, and every Friday when we do our Friday 5-minute fix. Subscribe to this podcast and never miss an episode. And wow, what an episode I've got for you today. It's the concluding part of the two-part series, which is an interview that I recently did with Rob Goddard over in Dubai. Rob is the founder of Evolution Complete Business Sales, a mergers and acquisitions company. And I've seen Rob go from his back bedroom to running a multiple seven-figure turnover business. He's a founding member of my Success Groups and has been a member for 7.5 years. He's also a founding member of my Extreme Growth Masterminds and has also been there for 4.5 years. Rob has been a consistent source of inspiration and support to me. And when I conceived of this podcast, he was the first person I contacted because I wanted to share his story and his knowledge and his inspiration with you. If you are currently running 100K plus turnovers in your business and you want to talk to us about potentially occupying a seat at one of our Extreme Growth Masterminds like Rob, then please contact Tracey.Miller. Tracey.Miller at biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. Email her. I'll drop her email link in the description. I'll also put the link to Rob's book, From Suicide to Success, an inspirational tale there of rags to riches. And I'll also put all the other links that you'll need in order to continue your own journey of extreme growth. Okay, so Rob is a serial entrepreneur. He's an absolute sales demon. He's a bloody nice guy. It's been a privilege to be on his journey, even more so to have him on mine. If you are serious about extreme growth, if you want to know what does it take to go from absolutely nothing to multiple seven figures in turnover, then these are the episodes for you. If you haven't yet listened to the previous episode, please do so. Enjoy this. I'll talk to you at the end. But wow, what an inspirational interview I've got coming up for you right now.
The other thing, I have now people coming to me wanting to go into business with me.
Yeah.
Now that's a bit different. A few years ago, where I was delighted when someone wanted to go with a cup of coffee with me.
Yeah. I call it when you first start dating. and you're a little bit desperate for anyone to like you.
Keen, eager.
And then when someone asks you out, you say yes because it seems rude not to. And then you end up in relationships you shouldn't end up with. And a lot of businesses, when they start up, it's like clients are like that, aren't they? They take any old client that's out there because it feels like they have to. And then one of the leveling up, I think, and it can happen quite early on in business. I don't mean like millions. It can happen, most businesses, I think it has to happen in the first 100K. I mean, whether it's 50, 60, whatever. But there has to be a point where you start saying no to clients, and that I think that may even become more important. I don't know. It'd be interesting where you're at. Is that more important to say no than it was?
Grow, yeah, because you get distractions. It becomes noise.
Yeah.
So in the early years, I had a lot of time on my hands because there wasn't a lot of business, and I was looking for stuff. Now, I have to persuade myself that it's something I should do. So is it aligned to the goal, my long-term goals?
Yep.
If it's not aligned, should I really pursue this?
Yep.
And so that's why it's really critical to have long-term goals, not just the short-term and the commitments and the rest of it, but what are you going to do in 5 years and how are you going to get there? So I say no now more times than I say yes.
Yeah. Do you know, I totally agree with that because I think these little one-liners are throwaway, but you know, there's way more you could do than you can do. Right? So in other words, like when it comes to goal setting, and you've mentioned goals a few times, but when it comes to goal setting, there's way more goals you could set than you can actually achieve. So I always say one of the hardest things about goal setting or any decision process is actually the stuff you're not going to go for more than stuff you are going to go for. So if there's 10 things I could do right now, but there's only one I can. So it's less important about the one I choose than it is about the 9
It's exactly
that I don't. Now you also mentioned goals. How important is goals? So obviously since you've been around us, obviously we're massively into goals and everything else. You mentioned goals a few times. I like what you said. Long-term goals, right? A vision, if you want to call it that. And then you align your shorter-term goals
with that long-term vision.
Is it the same process that you do today that you did even when you were going back to 100K?
Yes. It's good discipline as well. It's instinctive for me now to set short-term commitments and goals in order to achieve a long-term objective. And more so now because I've got so many distractions that I have to say no to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would take me there. I'd be like a bumblebee going from one flower to another. And I'd be active, but I wouldn't be productive. And I probably wouldn't hit my long-term goals. Because I'd be there. I'd be doing this.
I totally get that. And actually, I think that's another thing that people can get bogged down on. So I know in our business for sure, there was a point where you have to kind of, you can generically say niche or whatever, but it's not just about niching. It's about understanding who I am, what I do, who I do it for, and then you start saying no to the stuff that doesn't align with that. In other words, it's tempting to take the job that you think you can do, but isn't core alignment with where you're heading. And I think the stronger you have in terms of a vision, and the more certain you are that the goals you're setting are the right goals, then it's so much easier to say no in the moment. You haven't got to weigh everything up all the time. It's like, here's my cone, here's my funnel, here's where I'm heading. If it's within that, I'll give it some time and exploration. If it's just outside, I might give it a little look, because sometimes the magic happens in the peripheral. But ultimately, I'm out here now, and I'm here open. Dubai was not on the cards for me. But if something came up that was in alignment, but just outside of what I had set, I would definitely explore it. But being a natural creative at heart, I'm that guy, bang, 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 bang. And my tendency is something shiny happens over here, and the new always seems a little bit sexier than the old, and I'm the one that getting charges off over that. And actually, one of the lessons I learned in life is that I needed crazy commitment, because I was so undisciplined and so uncommitted that I needed that. And one of the reasons we brought goal setting into success groups and across mastermind and everything else wasn't because it was something I naturally did. It was something I fought and struggled with, and I really struggled to get to grips with them. But it was the one thing that gave me the discipline to stop that buzzing around. And I think if you're bouncing, I've seen people who are doing 50K, and they call them lifestyle businesses, or you can have a portfolio of businesses. You do a bit of this and a bit of that, a bit of one-to-one coaching and a bit of that and a bit of this, a bit of whatever. But the truth of the matter is, I don't know anyone that's done that that's ever really made it. You get to do that later. Like Richard Branson has 200 plus businesses because he did one well.
Yeah, and one of the dangers that comes in if you're in that 50 to 100, 150 is if it's off. You may well get one person who comes to you that wants your time and dominates. Now you might be a freelancer. Because you haven't got time to find other clients. So you're not developing your business, you're developing theirs. And that can that'll take you back into employment.
Do you know what? I think it's true. I think you've hit it on the head with me, because I think there is a difference between running a business, being a business owner, even being an entrepreneur, and that contractor freelancer. And sometimes it can get really blurred. And I think it's really tempting that you set up your business to do, I don't know, HR services or something, and then the client wants you to go and do days on site.
Indeed.
And now you're a contractor, and it may pay well, which is why they do it, of course.
Indeed, yeah.
But while you're there, as you say, you're not growing your business.
No,
so here's
you're
a question
growing theirs.
So if you're going to do a percentage of this, right, how much of your time do you think you spend growing your business as opposed to delivering within the business? So
now,
the in-on argument,
Now, probably 90% growing it.
And 10% you're in it delivering and...
Not delivery now.
Right.
It's managing certain aspects. So it's managing the management team.
Right,
it's the 10%. 90% is actually new ways of getting new business development funnels coming out here. It's developing. I work now 90% on tomorrow's business.
Right.
10% on today's.
So let me know if you agree, and you can disagree with me, right? Because I call bullshit on some on what people call as like kind of business wisdom, right? Now you personify the work on your business, not in your business mentality, which we know is absolutely the way you've got to get to. We know that.
It's a long journey.
Right, okay? Because here's my thing. If you're a startup business or a 50K or even maybe a 100K business, that mindset will bog bog you down so quickly because you only get paid when you're delivering.
Yes.
Right? So when you were charging around like a lunatic, and I remember you charging around like a lunatic,
for
right?
years.
Right? You were doing a lot of in-business stuff to grow it, right? Before you get on the business.
Absolutely.
Right, you do, right. Because I tell you now, it's one of the things that really pisses me off because it's thrown around, it's what I call sometimes business bullshit. It's thrown around like work on your business, not in. Now, even if the statement said work on your business, but don't forget to also deliver in, or work in your business, but you must also work on, it's the way it says work on, not in. And I think it goes into the psyche of some entrepreneurs, and they're sitting there doing shitloads of strategy, the life you lead, Rob, pissing off to Dubai, getting some sun,
travelling,
having some chats with Ferrari dealerships,
networking.
No, but you know what I mean. But yeah, like, it looks nice, right? You know, it's the Richard Branson job. You know, it's that bit, right? It looks really sexy from the outside, and of course, you then start trying to apply that. 50k. So you're spending hours a day doing strategy, and hours a day doing planning, and hours a day. But you're not selling.
I'm not doing the delivery on the selling. What I'm doing is I'm creating new relationships, meeting potential partners.
Yeah, pure growth stuff.
Yeah, which I love because I'm a starter. I can implement because I've built a business from nothing with sod all money. Yeah. But now I have other people that do the implementation, so I've got a freedom. But I had 6 years where I was the only fee earner.
Right. So you're only earning, right? This is my
for 6 years.
You're only earning when you're delivering.
Yes.
No one's paying you to strategize.
No.
Or do your website.
No.
Or marketing.
No.
They're only paying you when you're in front of them or doing work on their cases.
Well, if you're not selling, there's no cash in the business.
Right.
So if there's no cash in the business, you don't have a business. Yeah. And there's a transformation that happens in the lower six-figure bracket.
Yeah.
Up until that point, you could argue it's a job.
Yeah. Yes.
Not a business.
Yep.
Because it's totally reliant on you.
Yep.
But there's a point in the six-figure where, particularly if you start to take someone on or some people on, now you're starting to build some substance, and it's starting to become a business, not a job.
Yeah.
So
I totally get that, and I think it can sound insulting, and it's not meant like that at all. All it means is like you're saying is that because you sell businesses and help businesses sell. Obviously, you can't sell a business which relies on you because they can't buy you. You're not for sale.
Yeah.
So you have to have a business ultimately that exists without you, and that has got to be the end goal. But again, it's the end goal, isn't it? It's taken you 8 years to get to where you are now. You've got another 18 months running on your clock. We're kind of at the point you're talking about now, which is, we're starting to grow a team of people so that when I'm here talking to you, there's stuff happening back home in the UK. I've got people working, things are happening, and we're just starting out. But for the last year or so, we've really invested in that side of things, which is hard because that's our money, because that's small business mentality. The revenue, all the profit is mine, and then suddenly you realise, no, it's the business's money. Let's put it back in the business, and somebody else can earn it. So that's another,
exactly it.
So that's another part, right? And that's where we're at. So whilst it still heavily relies on us, there's no question. Instead of just having me and Tracey putting in however many hours we put in, there's another however many hours happening in the business, and that's when you start to get that exponential curve, isn't it?
Yeah.
And now you're working.
It is exponential.
And now you're working 90% on your business. That's how you can have that continued exponential curve, because instead of doing at the beginning, say 90% in and 10% on, to get the momentum. Now you've switched it over, you get that curve, but it's like you'll never get that momentum unless you do the in.
There's no short circuit.
No.
These get rich quick snake oil salespeople usually come from across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
So it's your podcast, not mine.
You're welcome to your own views.
There's no replacement for hard graft.
There's a lot of yeehaw stuff, right? There's a lot of you can be.
Buy this book.
And I love the whole concept being in personal development. I love the yeehaw, you can be anything. It's what got me started. I love the concept of that. But obviously, what you're talking about here is sometimes there's not a lot of substance that sits behind it. And I think it might be enough to get you woohoo. But unless there's something really going, and for me, that's where I come in, which isn't sexy shit. Which is, I do talk about graft, and I talk about taking it on the chin. I talk about I use my fighting analogies from when I used to kickboxing, and I used to train fighters and that. And I talk about you're gonna have to get hit in the head a lot before you get the shot at the big title. You're gonna have to get knocked out. You're gonna have to lose. You're gonna have to all this sort of stuff, and you have to go through that to be able to even stand in the ring at that level.
And you know what happens when you start that process? You talk about leveling up. So you've got a business that's turning over a few 100,000, and you've got a small team. it's really hard to start letting go.
Oh, isn't it just?
And I find this in the nature of what we do for our clients.
Yeah.
The hardest businesses to sell, and we don't take them on anymore,
Yeah.
are the ones that are owner reliant, where the owner can't let go.
Yeah.
So the education we try to give and the knowledge is start letting go of the business. Trust people.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't be as good as you.
Right.
You know, you started it.
But you're conditioning yourself to trust a little bit in other people.
Yeah, and maybe
stuff.
they won't do it perfectly like you would.
Yeah.
And I do challenge some MDs of multi-million-pound businesses, and when they say to me, Rob, there isn't anyone. We've tried and they've failed, and you know, and I say, so you're saying to me there's no MD that can replace you anywhere in this country?
Yeah, no.
And they smile.
Yeah.
And I said, look,
it sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? And you can hear it.
They say, well, I've tried. I said, well, so you're a bad hirer of people then.
Yeah, right.
Either way, you're the one that's failing.
Yeah.
So the next stage is starting to upskill and encourage and delegate to a team around you, because they'll take you forward further than you could do yourself on your own.
I totally agree. And on that note you mentioned about not as good as you, here's the thing, right? Sometimes it's a bitter pill to swallow, but they sometimes are better than you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's hard. It takes some, you know, obviously it sounds like the right thing. Of course, everyone says we must hire people that are better than I am. It sounds good on paper, but when you're really invested in I am so needed and I'm so important, it can be hard to do that. But here's the other thing, right, is that actually I always said this, even if they're not as good as you, right, let's say I'm doing my marketing, my sales, I'm doing my delivery, my own accounts, whatever, right,
Yes.
like a small business is.
Yes.
Even if I, right, have the ability, let's say at 100%, right,
Yes.
marketing, and I can do an amazing job at marketing, but if I'm only giving 30% to marketing because I'm being diluted across other businesses, the person replacing me doesn't have to be better than me. They just need to be able to do more than I do in that area. So if I hire someone that's 70% as good as I am, but they dedicate everything to it, marketing in my business is now getting 2.5 times what it was getting on my watch, even if it's not as good. And I think there's that whole thing where we're constantly thinking, like, you know, they're not as good. It's not about whether they're as good as you, it's are they doing a better job than you? And if they're putting in 40 hours a week into something that you were doing 10 hours, you've got to be really bloody good for that not to be better than what you're doing.
That's a good point. And Samantha is the head of marketing. She's better at marketing than me.
Yeah.
Mike and Steve are better at business development than me.
Yeah.
They're great people. Kay is head of research. She's my research director. She's far better than me. Yeah. That's not saying I'm a perfect hirer of people. I've made some mistakes, but those people have got.
Tracy the same. Yeah, you've got to kiss a few frogs. It's
a bit of a black art getting the right people, but I love the fact that I've got now a growing band of people that are better than me.
Right, and then what you do...
But I still own the business.
Right, so here we go. Let's bring it back to the whole concept of the podcast. What your job is to do is keep levelling up so you're the best at what Rob Goddard is doing, right? So when the business started off, you were the best salesperson you had and the best market you had because you were it.
Admin.
Right? Yeah, right. Then you leave that behind and your job is to become the best salesman, which is what you did when you went all in on sales 100%.
Yeah.
And then your job now is no longer to be best salesman. Your job is to be the best leader of the business. And then, of course, your job then eventually is to hire someone better at that than you.
To replace me.
And at that point, you can do as much or little as you want. You can sell the business, you can own the business, do you know what I mean? You could be a part-time chairman of your own business if you want to stay in touch, or you could just literally say, right, move on to the next thing. Yeah,
because my role now as chief exec of the business is managing risk.
Right.
So that's quite difficult for a salesman, because I'm glass half full.
Yes, of course.
Naturally, I've been selling for 40 years. But I've learnt skills.
That's why we have FDs in the business.
So
to counteract our half fullness, we have our accountants and FDs. My accountant might not appreciate me saying that.
But also, I have team members, heads of department and directors coming to me with proposals. Yeah. I have to see that in the round and say, well, what's the risk to the business? Yeah. What's the potential upside for us? Yeah. So I found as chief exec, that's what I spend most of my time.
Right. So that's where you're now becoming the best in the business at that.
I have to be, and I'm learning that. No one taught me.
No,
I've had to learn it.
So would you say is this your latest levelling up?
Yeah.
This is where you're in process now?
Because I could lose it all on black if we were at Las Vegas. So
and it's not just you now, right?
No, I've got 24.
The numbers are bigger, the money's bigger, your personal losses are greater. but also there's 20 other people's livelihoods and everything else on the thing.
And I feel that.
Yeah.
I've got 6 kids, and I've got 20 odd in the team, and I see them as my extended family. Huh?
It's a lot of responsibility.
Till I get the 6 children in. That's gone down well in Dubai. Big families.
Yeah. But it's true. But it's true, isn't it? Right. And so my whole thing is really simple. Like coming back to the fighting analogy.
Yeah.
You have to do the hard fights early on.
Yeah.
And you have to take the knocks and that, because otherwise you never earn your right to step in that ring. So one of the things I talk about is what I call entrepreneurial conditioning, and one of the things I talk about is. You have to make tough decisions, right? So I talk about the 4 pillars, okay? And there's 4 pillars that support your entrepreneurial conditioning, and it's your conditioning that supports your ability to create success. Like foundations in a bit. So you have foundations, you have the thing that supports foundations, and then you can build your building high. Around here, right, 150 floors, you've got a great sturdy plinth, and underneath that, huge foundations. So I say your entrepreneurial conditioning is in your foundations.
It is.
And one of those is being able to make the tough decisions. Now, no one would ever be able to go to a point where you're making decisions on £4+ million business, and a decision you said where you could lose it all on black, and there's 20 plus people's livelihoods, 6 kids, plus all your own personal stuff and your personal that you've worked hard to accrue yourself. There's no way you'd be frozen, wouldn't you, in fear if you hadn't have had to make all of those other decisions that not necessarily as big as they are now, but the decisions at 100 enabled you to do the decisions at multiple hundreds, to millions.
It layers.
That's what I think.
Absolutely.
And you won't, because you said yourself you've got your own strategy. But if you were to take your business to 100 million, if I suddenly took you and plonked you in there now, even with everything you've done, you'd probably freeze at that level, right?
I would.
Because you haven't got the conditioning. And that's why we talk about the leveling up, because for me, it's building on, and it's understanding that I can't go from here to here. I have to go through this process of personal growth as well as obviously business growth and external growth at the same time.
Also, I've been learning from people in the next stage or 2 above me. So bigger companies. Because I've been absorption mode over the years. Because your clients
must also, to some degree, be potential mentors. Like you learn, kind of learn from with what.
Look, I mean, our typical clients are multi-millionaires already. And by selling their business, they'll add to their wealth. Now, I wasn't a multi-millionaire when I started business. I had £2.30 and half a cup of coffee. So, and I didn't have a car. And when I got a car, it was a 15-year-old Audi A4, which I had to park up the road. I couldn't park it in their office car park.
We've been tracing. It wasn't that long ago, right? So as you well know, I've just levelled up in the vehicular department with an Audi. And interestingly, we had the same thing. Right? Which is I had this little Astra that I loved to death when I got it brand new. Put 200,000 miles on it. And I'm going into clients talking about let's all get successful, and I'm doing the same thing. I'm hiding the car around the corner.
And you get creative. I mean, when I had no car because I was brassic, I had to pick prospective clients that were near railway stations. That was my strategy, was to follow the railway line. Because and take a taxi for the extra couple of miles. But you're right. It is a progression, and there isn't a shortcut. I wouldn't want to run 100 million turnover.
No, I get that.
But the principle's right. It'd be too much of a jump. But most of my clients, until the last couple of years, have been well above me. But I've been listening to, in terms of what I'd achieve, because Evolution was a 5-figure, then a 6-figure business. Our clients' business is much bigger than that. And I've been listening, asking questions, and I've been learning from what they've been doing. Whilst they're paying me.
Do you know what? We're in the same boat, Rob. So you know, we've got. So whilst we work with a lot of businesses smaller than us, so we start with not startups, but kind of low 5 figures, 10, 20, 30 grand, all the way through to masterminds typically have hundreds of thousands in them. So they're typically between sort of 200, maybe 3, 4, 5. But obviously, you being one of them, ahead of where we are, and we've got a few people there doing millions. And obviously, I do one-to-one work with clients, and they're always typically £1 million plus. That's who I target in terms of when I do the work with culture and stuff like that. And I am like a sponge, right? I'm not going in there saying tell me what you know, but I'm just absorbing how you're talking, and I'm listening to the problems that you bring in your business and the other guys, and I feel it's really important to me, because as we're starting to go through our own journey, there's things that I see coming on our path that I've seen you and other people go through a number of years ago. And there's no question that just having that proximity of people ahead of where I am has really helped me go through it.
And it links in with something you unlocked for me a few years ago, which was, if you want to progress, you've got to think like that person. So if you want to be a millionaire, think like a millionaire. So I know, can we talk about air flights?
Air flights, we can talk about air flights.
But I've flown economy for 30, nearly 4 decades.
Yeah.
I had a real tussle a few years ago flying business.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I saw it as an unnecessary luxury.
Yeah, because you're thinking like the economy guy.
That's it. So 500 quid economy flight to Dubai.
Yeah.
I did a few of those.
Yeah.
I was really tired when I flew a 7-hour flight during the night and then straight into meetings.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I go business, I'll get a flat bed and I can get some sleep.
Yep.
I was really hesitant because I thought that's another $2,000.
It just feels indulgent. It feels a waste of money.
Yeah, a luxury.
It feels like what other people do. There's a whole host of things that kick off in there.
But it was something that you said to me. It was a couple of years ago.
Yep.
If you want to go to the next level, you have to think and behave that way. Now, it's become the norm.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact. And in fact, when I travel with the family economy, when we go on family holidays, I notice the difference.
Yeah.
But when I land in Dubai, I feel different.
Right.
And it's something to do with the inside that you feel confident, that if you achieve some success, even if you haven't done to the level that you were looking for, but if you start to do that, do the things that the people in the larger companies do,
100%.
It gives you that encouragement. So it's conditioning the mind.
And it's interesting because I know a lot of people listen to this now. I've got this mantra in their head of "fake it till you make it," and yeah, but no. I don't like saying that because I think you've got to be authentic and honest, and that's not what we're talking about here. Is blagging and bullshitting and stuff.
No, it's not that.
What it is, it's about pushing yourself almost and that sounds crazy, right? And anyone who's not there yet. To push yourself to fly business class, right?
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to fly business class. And this comes back to the whole idea when the extraordinary becomes ordinary, right?
That's it.
So when you first go on business class, I know when I first went business class, right, I felt indulgent, a bit guilty. I felt kind of cool, but not cool. I had a whole host of emotions going on. Excited, and it was weird. And there's no question about it that whilst I was flying business class, I hadn't leveled up because it still felt unique to me and whatever, right? Now we flew out here with you, right? So we all flew out in business class, and you know this, right? I raided my mini bar, and I raided the toilets in business class.
Oh, the toiletry bag, the Bulgari toiletry bag. My
Bulgari toiletry bag. So I'm going to hold my hands up here and say, there's no question. Whilst I am absolutely comfortable doing the European flights business class, right? I do that now, pretty much standard, right? We haven't done long haul for a long time. We haven't done long haul for a long time, and now we've done it with you. We came over here. It didn't feel uncomfortable because I'd done a bit before. I felt like I belonged here a little bit. I didn't dress like I belonged.
I deserve it.
I didn't dress like I belonged, but I felt I deserved it. And it didn't feel uncomfortable at all. It felt really cool. That's a nice feeling that I know because I have got barriers from my personal background. I'm going to today, but I've got issues around wealth and money, and we had a lot of limitation growing up. And I know we talked about it, you did too, right? So a lot of mindset stuff that I've had to break through to kind of make money and do some stuff with money. And going business class was that, and it was nice how easy I found it. But there's no question, the fact I'm still, keeping souvenirs. Can we call them souvenirs? Keeping souvenirs.
Photographs in the bar at the back of the Airbus.
Right. So the fact we keep, obviously implies it's not normal. I'm looking around business class, right? And you can see, you said this, you can see the people who aren't used to doing it or don't do it regularly because it's like, oh my God, I've got 3 million channels, oh my God, I've got a big TV, or I can leave my legs out. And then you see the other guy that comes in, sits down, he's like, that guy does it all day long, he just wants a bed. But you're right, it is that, and that's that leveling up, and it's important because you. And we haven't got enough time to go into the whole thing now, but it is that idea where you do say to yourself, right, like the future me, and I don't mean like when I'm £100 million or £1 billion turnover, just the level I'm going into now. Does he fly EasyJet, for example, right?
Right.
Does he fly, does he turn up to Dubai frazzled, fried? This is what I said to you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I said, my brother-in-law's been going business class for a little while through business, and he says to me, it's worth its weight in gold, and he sees it purely, it's really simple. It's not about, the big I am on it. It's really simple. He gets to fly across the Atlantic, flies the Atlantic, wakes up the next day, goes straight into meetings, a shower, wash, a massage probably, I don't know. He's done all of that, and he can go straight into business. Whereas you without that, you go there and you're frazzled, you're fried, you're hurting, you're aching, you haven't slept. You either go in underwhelming into that place, into that, or you have to take 1 or 2 days to acclimatise before you go in there.
So you've lost time.
So you've lost time, right?
So now that counteracts the increase in ticket. So there is apart from the mindset, having the mindset of the business that you want to become. There's also the other part of it is, do you know what? It's bloody hard running your own business. So just treat yourself.
You do need rewards.
Do you know what? It's not bad. It's not a bad thing to enjoy, because we're working 24. We work a lot of hours self-employed and work running your own business. It is nice to treat yourself, because if you can't treat yourself, then what's the point? You might as well just be an employee.
Well, here's the thing. Well, it's true, right? Yeah. Because when I look at it, I talk about rewards all the time, right? And you need 2 types of rewards. They're all internal, right? It's how you feel, but I call them internal, external rewards. So the internal rewards are feeling pride, feeling good about what you've done, a sense of contribution or something like that. Like you've enhanced someone's life, you've done something good in the world. All these things are internal, fuzzy feelings that are reward, and we need those, because without those, it's just hard work. And then the external rewards are also important. So whilst I talk about, we talk about materialism, and we know materialism is not the way to happiness. We know happiness comes from within, etc. But sometimes it's just easier to feel happy in business class, right? Sometimes it's easier to feel happier when you've got the car that you would want for yourself, or the watch, or the handbag, or the shoes, or
the pen.
Or the pen, right. So if you turn up to a meeting and
with a biro
and you don't feel good, you could go off and do a lot of meditation, Zen work. You can do a lot of internal personal development so that you feel at one with yourself, walking into a meeting in a 50 quid hand-me-down suit, turning up on a bus, right? And yes, you absolutely, that's valid. You could do the work on this, or you could make some cash, have a nice car, and wear the shoes you want, right? And for me, I talk about the balance being right between the internal and the external, right? And it's like, if we go too materialistic, I think that is not the route to happiness. If we had to choose one, we would go internal and be all zen and happy. But I think in business, it's important to understand that there's this interflow between internal and external. When you turn up something in business class, or you turn up with, whatever your thing is. For me, I don't really care about shoes. You've got some really nice shoes. It doesn't bother me. So I don't mind turning up to a meeting in a pair of Adidas, for example, because it doesn't bother me, right? But if a pair of £1,000 shoes makes a lady feel like better about what she's doing, or feel she takes more, if it makes her feel better, it's like having like sexy underwear on, right? No one gets to see it probably, right? I don't know, right? So I don't have sexy underwear. I'm sure I don't. I don't think anything I wear would be deemed sexy. I think the moment I put it on, it negates any sexiness. But it is an idea, right? You put you feel
good about yourself.
I've heard ladies, they have their sexy underwear, and that sexy underwear makes them feel, they're confident this, or they're lucky this. You have a lucky charm in your pocket, don't you? Whatever, your key ring or whatever. No one gets to see that stuff, but it's how you feel. So here's a quick one, right? We'll to finish up on, right?
Sure.
So some quick fire questions.
Okay,
all
go
right?
for it.
So I don't know if you know Inside the Actors Studio, but I'm a big fan, as my background of film and that. And what he does at the end, he asks a series of questions that he asks pretty much everyone the same questions, right? Really quick answers. We don't go into massive detail, but what, and I caveat this one because we're all conditioned to not use this word, right? So I'm going to use words that we're conditioned not to use, but I like this one, right? So if we had a biggest regret, now whilst we'll say I don't have any regrets, right? The truth is, we potentially do. If you had any regrets in your business career, what would they be? Or what the one biggest regret?
Not being softer with people. I was too, in my early years, I was too unaware of people's feelings. And I'm still fairly direct.
Okay.
So I've hurt people over the years, and that's been a regret for me.
Okay.
And as I've got older, I'm still roughy tufty, but I do have some. I do have some soft.
You have awareness of your.
I have an awareness, but I never had.
Yeah. Okay. If you could go back, this is a double question. This one.
Okay.
If you could go back to any point in your business career, and say anything.
Ooh.
What? So, because everyone says the question. If you go back to the beginning, because sometimes it's not the beginning you needed to learn shit. You might have needed it at 100 grand or a million or whatever, right? So, at what point, right? So what would be the one thing you'd say to yourself? At what point in your career?
It would be in that process of starting to let go of the running of the business.
Okay.
I wish I'd done it earlier.
Yeah. Everyone says that, by the way.
Oh, do they? Right.
Even we said this.
Yeah.
Tracey, you know, she'll openly admit how and she's, in fact, in our podcast that we did last month, she said how that was one of hers. I don't regret. We talked about it, came up where, you know, she was held back. We're working twice as hard as we need to, and we're holding the business back. And you do it, and you realise you should have done it sooner.
Snap.
Right.
Yeah. Same for me.
Cool. Nice one, mate. What do you think what's been your number one internal obstacle? So in other words, within you, a block or limitation within you that you've had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Wow. Looking at the glass half empty, which is not my natural position.
Okay. This is associated to the risk thing we talked about.
Risk, yeah. So not to always be gung ho. I'm always going to be. Because I'm a sales guy, I'm always going to be glass half full.
Yeah.
But I've learned, I went into business, I got some investment from an accountancy firm. And I learnt from them, I'm not an accountant, but I learnt some stuff from them just to take a balanced view.
Yeah.
Because as you get bigger, you've got more to lose.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's best to actually reflect. So one of the things I've learnt now is not to try and react too quickly and be that instinctive, spontaneous.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because it's
not my natural style.
That's the trait that got you there.
I know.
And when I work with people at your level, one of the things we talk about is actually they have to change, and it's hard because the very mindset and the very attitudinal approach to things that got you to that point is not the one that's going to get you moving forward. And you have to, this isn't about updating a computer system, this is you having to go against core philosophy that you've had that's got you to that success philosophy.
Because the success is blinkered, but well driven.
Yeah.
Now I've had to develop the ability to take on the views of others, because my starting point was I'm right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an egocentric position.
But it's a powerful one to make decisions on.
It is. But as the business has grown, I may not be right.
I think that there's meant to be quick questions, but I love the answer because again, I do think that's part of the leveling up process. I think when you start out your business, you do need a little bit of blind belligerence, because I think you'll get so much advice and so much shit advice, and everyone will have their say that if you listen to it, you'll do nothing, and you have to say, it's my business, I'll do what I want to do. But you're right, when you get to a point where you are now, it's having the wisdom to know that you've surrounded yourself with people that either they may be smarter than you, but even if they're not smarter than you, they may be smarter than you in that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. Right, okay, toughest external, what's the toughest thing externally you've had to go through that you're willing to share?
I think growing a business with sod all money.
Right.
Because you
something from nothing, yeah.
Yeah, because in the early period of time, I was working 24/7, more than I ever did in a corporate job.
Yeah.
The rewards weren't there, and there were times where I felt really low. I was putting all the work in, and I wasn't getting the fruit.
Yeah.
I had the belief that it would come good, but it's almost blind belief.
Yeah. But you need that as well.
But I was working hard, working 90 hours a week, and not earning a lot of money.
Got you. Yeah, I got you. And it's hard to keep doing that, right? For long enough for traction.
I know, yeah.
What do you consider your greatest entrepreneurial asset? And that was your personality trait or your attitude. What do you think was the one? There's loads, right? But the one that you think maybe is responsible for a disproportionate amount of the success you've had?
Humour.
Okay, that's cool. You surprised me then. Go on.
Because I use the human side of me to connect with people.
Yeah.
And I've delivered to business owners difficult things, saying difficult things and tricky things, but I've used I've overlaid humour to make it personable.
Do you know,
what did you think I was going to say?
I was thinking something kick-ass was going to come out. You know? I don't know, my ability to turn, I don't know, no sale into sales. I don't know, conjure up sales from the heavens. But no, that's interesting because you know what? It's absolutely, and you know me from the stuff I do. I think it's actually a key thing I do, which is we deal with people some really heavy shit sometimes, personal and business. And if you go in there, it's just really serious stuff. It becomes even more serious. So
the reason it leads to business success rather than just being out for a laugh is that people buy people first, as we keep being told. Yeah. But if they like you, they're more likely to buy from you.
Oh my God! Do you know what I say this right? Because some people don't get this right. They think that people buy because they've got the best product or the best price.
No.
The bottom line is this: if someone likes you, they'll pay almost twice as much to get you, right? If they like you, they want to be around you. Well, I learned this in sales when I was doing a lot of computer sales stuff, and I was doing like distribution, a lot on the phone. And I learned that I would get the phone call even when I was a bit more expensive than my competitor,
right?
Because the buyer would have fun with me and have a chat with me, so they would pay 5% more, maybe whatever it might be with me, because I gave them the break in the day that it was fun to do business.
Yeah, so people have bought me for years. They traded with Evolution, but they bought me.
100%.
The last few years, they've been buying the team.
Well, and that's another part of that process of
Not me.
Of that level, and it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because how can you
never progress
if you're only getting business because of your name? How are you going to do it? So that's another part, isn't it, of that?
That's another story for another podcast.
Isn't it just? But that's another part of it. Okay, really quickly, you're defining why. What drives you?
To have significance and purpose in life.
Cool. Biggest failure?
Marriage.
Greatest success?
Right now, international expansion.
Cool.
I'm loving it.
And what is it, and that's my last question, is what is it you love most about what you do? Is it that now?
I like the travel.
Yeah.
I want to be a global citizen that sets up incubator businesses for Evolution in different countries. Switzerland's next on the agenda.
I didn't want to say anything in case it was a secret.
It's an idea. It's an offer.
Why not? That's the game, right? It's an opportunity. Why not?
I've had sand for a couple of years here.
Yes, I
want some snow.
Let's get some snow. Rob, awesome. I knew it'd be cool. I knew it'd be brilliant. I knew it'd be fun as well. So I just want to thank Rob again for coming on here and sharing and being really candid as well, which I think is really important. I think it's just so important to people to understand, no matter where they are on their journey, some of the tips and tricks that get people there, but also I think it's that commonality that we all have on this journey, no matter where we're at.
Absolutely.
And it's been massively valuable to everyone, to myself and everything else.
It's been a blast.
Awesome. Okay, guys, until next time, and we'll have another awesome guest. We'll be talking about leveling up, what it takes to go to the next level in your business. Until then, as always, be successful. Okay, so that concludes the two-part interview with Rob Goddard of Evolution CBS. A really inspirational guy, a very knowledgeable businessman, but also he painted a very clear picture that the road to success is not an easy one. And to go from literally nothing to 7 figures and multiple 7 figures in revenue is gonna take a little bit of hard graft. You're gonna have to ride that roller coaster a little bit. You're gonna have to pay your dues in order to reap those rewards. If you are inspired by Rob's story and you're a business owner and you're already doing over £100,000 in revenue or more, and you want to take your business to the next level and you want to double your turnover in the next 12 months, then please talk to us about potentially having a seat at our Extreme Growth Masterminds. Rob's been a founding member of my Extreme Growth Mastermind since I conceived it 4.5 years ago, and it's been really inspirational watching him on his journey. But we have many inspirational stories coming out of our Extreme Growth Masterminds. We've got people that have gone from 150 to 350 to 750 to 1.5 million consecutive years. We've also got people that went from 120 to 160 last year, and this year are currently tracking 400k plus in revenue. If you're doing over 100 grand and you're serious about taking your business to the next level and you're serious about extreme business growth, then talk to Tracey.Miller. That's Tracey.Miller at biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. I'll put her email address in the descriptions. Talk to her about how we can help you take your business to the next level. Whether you've just broken the 100k mark, or maybe you've been running 200, 300 grand for a while now and you want to take your business to the next level, talk to Tracey and let us share with you how we can help you get that extreme business growth in your business. If you haven't yet quite hit the 100k mark and you want to take your business to 100k or more in the next 12 months or less, maybe you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50 or even 60,000 in revenue, but for whatever reason, you haven't quite taken your business over the 100k threshold, then please go to a webinar that I've created specifically with the 5-figure service-based business in mind. It's the 6-figure fast track, how to take your business to 100k or more in the next 12 months or less. You can find that at biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk/fast track. Again, I'll put the links in the description. And yeah, make sure you show up on your own entrepreneurial journey. Make sure you keep leveling up. The rewards are out there. Rob has just shown you that over these past 2 episodes. I'll see you on Friday for our Friday 5-minute fix, when we will complete this series and the theme that has been this week, which has been the interview with Rob Goddard. I want to thank Rob for being an amazing interview, and I also want to thank him for being a constant source of inspiration and support to me on my own journey of success. I'll see you next time, and as always, until then, be successful.